Wickedness is a part of life. Original Baraman along with the two bad, wicked youths of rap. God mercy, whoa.
What's the business? Talk paper when I'm riding by. They know it's drizzle, eat the truth off the east side. I know who ain't got my money because they ducking high. I grind for me and mines. I got the green light. I got to get it how I live it. That means front line. I got them zips. I got that soft. I got that hard white.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the show. Oh, it just caught up. I'm gonna wait till chat fills up a little, and then we'll get into it. I'm sure you know what today's all about. No secret, no surprise there. Let's read some of the comments. Funops says, "Jeem, I love you." Well, buddy, I don't know what to do about that. Master Miller, are we cooking CS again? It's CA now. I changed it. Problem 2 hooks, giving sass to the resident crook. Blue Skittle says W. CS Lewis says W. Yo, I've been waiting. Let's go. Catching another Jeem stream. I'm a strawberry. Okay. Aura off the charts, says El Capitan. Batman Beyond says yo. Time Phaser says hello, Jeem. I finally made it to his stream. I don't know what disgusting time zone you guys are on, but it's a little late for me here. About 10 p.m. I don't like to do them that late. So, not going to do them that late. But it's a weekend, so I thought, y'all will be awake. We will be sharing screen. That's what Time Phaser, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to watch some of this. I will not be doing all of it. I don't think you guys need me to do all of it. I've renamed him Cosmic Abortion, and that shall be his name. We've only got 20 viewers, so we're going to wait a minute. We'll be looking through some of this. It is an hour and 33 minutes, so we're not going to see every single person. The topics I find interesting, I'm going to look at. The others I'm going to skip through. I'm going to try to give pretty quick answers. I don't want to be here all night. I know some of you don't want to either. I don't know if I'm going to have a part where people jump on the stream, because I don't know what that would add to this presentation. In the past 7 streams, we've had a lot of people join. We've had more of an open panel discussion type format, but I don't know what value that would add for a debunk like this. Joseph says he's in the West Coast after moving from the Northeast. Where were you living in the Northeast? My girlfriend's family, they're in upstate New York. So, it's a dying civilization, unfortunately. Cool area, though. They got stuff there. It's not a bad area. It's got a cool culture, but it's dying. Those small towns are dying, I'll tell you that. A lot of those small towns, upstate New York, towns in the middle of cement nowhere in Ohio and Tennessee, those are dying. People are moving to the cities, but not like Chicago. I live here in Chicago. I would say Chicago's shrinking a little. Some of the big businesses are closing, which is sad. I don't know if that's kind of a runoff effect from COVID or whatnot, but it's not growing. It's not drastically dying, but it's not growing. I hear that California is also losing a population, but some states, such as Texas and Florida, have gained an enormous population in the last half decade. Hit the like button. Yeah, please hit the like button. So it's unacceptable that we're going to have, I close out of this stream and I check it a day later. It's got 2,000 views and I've got 5 likes. So come on. Hi, glad you're making a video on this. Macaro. Well, I don't know if that's good news or bad news, because if you guys are the type of people that a video by Mr. Abortion here would scare you, then you haven't been watching enough Gene content. I know most of you guys know the answers to this stuff. This is more for new viewers. This video isn't going to last 1 minute before Gene gets pissed at some dumb cosmic retard says. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. All right, we've got about 30 viewers. I'm going to give it 30 seconds more, and let's crack into 30, and then we're going to start the thing. Because why should I waste all the good material in the first 5 minutes? Nobody watches the first 5 minutes of a stream. Whether you're watching Sam Shamoon, Jay Dyer, I can never watch a Sam Shamoon stream and watch the first 25 minutes. I skip the first half hour. The first 30 minutes is just like, I don't know, just riffing. So I'm gonna riff here for a few minutes. One atheist. Yeah, here's two crooks with the hot take. One atheist versus 25 Christians is peak 2010 new atheist type title. Yeah, it is. I keep forgetting how long ago 2010 was. I was thinking, oh, it's not long ago, but it was actually 15 years ago. It's pretty sad. All this like crazy internet stuff blew up post 2016. But yeah, it does really feel like a 2009 Reddit thing. R atheism. Bro, it's 5 a.m. in Germany. Well, I don't live in Germany. Can eat, so I don't know what to tell you. Will you digitally release your book by any chance? No. But if you cannot get my physical book, just message me on Skype. My Skype is literally in the link and stuff here, and I can arrange to get you an online version. I have a PDF. I'll just give you the PDF. But I don't want to put that online as the gold standard. So I don't want a lot of people using that. But if for some reason you live in like, you know, Western Sahara and you have no government, then fine. I will give you the book via the internet. Pre-stream yapping. Well, I don't know, buddy. You're contributing to the yap. So what does that say about you? I watch those with the finger in the right arrow. What? What does that even mean? And say you're scared, but you know, it's hard on some of these boys who don't know their terms. At two crooks, one Armenian versus 25 Lebanese. Actually, two crooks. Guess what? I found a great linguistic video that proves that Greeks and Armenians, even though they're even though they are Japhethite, you're part of a different branch than the rest of Indo-European language families. So the Greeks and the Armenians are Indo-Aryan. So you're actually more similar to Iran, which makes sense for Armenia, but I wasn't expecting it for Greece. But yeah, Greece stands out as a sore thumb in Europe. It's not like the other Indo-European languages. It's Indo-Aryan. Gene, when will your book be about now that you have the patent? Oh, you mean the fiction book? Yeah, that'll be soon. Oh, now we got 42 viewers. So apparently I just gain viewers when I'm talking rat shit. But I mean, if you guys want to get into the subject, we'll get into the subject. My Skype is literally just my business Gene email. There it is right there. Email me there. I will probably respond within a week. If you Skype me, I'll respond sooner. We're going to start right now. I don't know how much of this intolerable nonsense I'll be able to take. I'm going to put on subs, but they're not always great. Two hypotheses. Don't get tricked by the high language. Like using words like hypotheses, like that's, what is that? Like people in 6th grade learn that. All right, let's start at like 30 seconds. Whoever touches the chair first gets to debate. What if you have a really long finger and you touch the chair before everybody else? All right, let's get going. Last one. Two Crooks says, oh yeah, for sure, Jim. There are a lot of Iranians in my area in Toronto. From a distance, their language sounds Armenian. Yeah, it's like all these English and French and Portuguese guys were going to India, and they saw that different dialects of Indian languages. So Hindi, I forget the ones that are more common in the Maharashtra area, but I don't know the names of them. It was on the tip of my tongue. But the point is that these languages were similar enough that they thought, oh, these aren't like independent racial group. They're actually related to Europe, or rather Europe is related to them. So with Greek and Armenian, they're closer to the Aryan, meaning like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, than they are to like Italy and Spain. So there you go. Jeem is 1 year older than me. Oh yeah, because my email says my birth year. Yeah, that's true. All right, let's go.
Good work.
Hey, Alex, how's it going?
How's it going? Nice to meet you.
Sage.
Why don't you just begin? Why is suffering or evil make God's existence unlikely?
All right, guys, can you hear that before I start? No, I'm not talking about Malayalam or Punjabi. There's one it's called, you guys are going to really mess me up with this now. All right. I have a friend who lives there. Marathi. Okay, spoken in Maharashtra area. Marathi. There you go. Point is, those are Indo-Aryan. Can you guys hear the video? I played it for a few seconds. Come on. I know there's a 15. All right, you guys can hear it good. It's like a 15-second delay. So when I say stuff, it has to go through Einstein's black hole to get to you. It sounded wrong. All right, let's continue.
I think when confronted with two hypotheses, so atheism, naturalism, or theism, we should ask what we expect would occur under either hypothesis. And then
You guys are right. I couldn't go 30 seconds. Theism? What is he talking about? There is no theism. Nobody on earth who believes in God would call themselves a theist. It's such an atheist thing to say, or an agnostic thing to say. Different religions have a totally different view of God. Like some religions think God is pure evil, so the problem of evil wouldn't be a problem for them. So there is no theism. That doesn't make any sense. Like some of them think God is evil. Others think that God does good, but then he also does violence. He does wrath, which is closer to the actual biblical and Christian view. Like, just all good does not mean all nice. I'm sure you guys are aware of that. And then there's the Islamic concept. Like, what does that have to do with this loving, this super loving stuff? Like, there's loving, and then there's taking it 3 steps too far. Let's continue. I can't tell you the name of the book, or else someone, I don't know, just wait. It'll be there. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. But I will answer questions when we're done.
And then we look at the world and we see what does actually occur. And what do we find? We find, I think most relevant here, a system of natural selection, the mechanism by which God apparently chose to bring animals and ultimately human beings into existence.
Well, that's a presupposition right there. What if that's not 100% correct? He just says we find natural selection, by extension macroevolution. But I've done my work on macroevolution, and even though people have said, Gene, you're using a fallacy, it's irrelevant data. It's not irrelevant. If somebody's system is based on a complex version of metaphysics, then if those metaphysics do not exist, they can't use that system. Maybe I didn't make that clear. I don't believe Neoplatonic metaphysics are real. They're not real. I think they go against the order of the universe that we see, and we can tell via both empiricism, scripture, and pretty much everything else. So if I don't believe that Neoplatonism is real, and then Darwin bases his entire idea on Neoplatonism, he's wrong. Microevolution is a different topic, but the point is, when you bring up the natural selection stuff, it always goes hand in hand with macroevolution. So already we're just beginning with my position's right, yours is wrong.
A system which is defined by suffering. Survival of the fittest is the same thing as the death and suffering and destruction of the unfit. I'm told that the very mechanism...
Well, not necessarily. Brutal as it may seem, a lot of animals actually take great joy in what they're doing. So when a lion hunts an impala or something, they enjoy that. I'm sorry, but they do. That's not, for the lion, that's not suffering. And most lions don't get hunted. Not saying they go to a retirement home, but, probably die of old age, starve or something, and that's it. That might be bad for the last couple months of their existence, but overall, it's actually nowhere near as bad as what humans have been doing to each other for the past 5,000 years. So if anything, the problem is not with natural selection, Mr. O'Connor. It's actually with what we choose to do within the free agency range of our choices. €5, God bless Lebanon. Thank you, Can Yeet. All right, let's continue.
That God chose to bring about the human species as the ultimate end of his creation.
Well, again, that's actually incorrect, because in the Christian system, you have the fall. So that's not true. Because of what Adam and Eve did, you have the fall of nature and creation. So, no, somebody who's debating this guy does not have to say, this was the intent, this was the master plan. It wasn't the master plan. We don't believe per Pelagius that people have 100% free will, but you have free agency. So if I give you 10 multiple choice answers, you can pick one of them. You just can't pick 11, 12, or anything between 12 and 1,000. But you can pick the first 10. So yeah, they chose, and we had the fall of creation. Boom. I mean...
was one that is imbued with suffering, such that 99.9% of all the species, let alone animals, that have ever existed on planet Earth have been brutally wiped from existence.
Again, dude, that is presupposing that the macroevolution system, which had taken 8 billion years, is true. Again, why is this dude in the sweater not going to answer? I know he's not going to answer any of that.
Extinction. And I think that that's less likely on theism if you assume atheism or materialism. Not only do you explain this, you also come to expect it.
What is your...
Secondly, why can't a theist, whatever that means, believe in materialism? Why is... See, before we've even begun, the dialectical opposition philosophy, which comes from Hegel, etc., is already in play. Why is it that atheism means materialism? Doesn't actually. And theism means, I don't know, immaterialism, souls and ghosts and spermaticos flying around in the air. Why is it that a theist can't be a materialist? If you say, well, Gene, you're just playing devil's advocate there. No, I'm not. You can read the writings of Saint Theophan the Recluse. He actually says that revelation is given via the ether, which can be explained materially. Bingo bango. And Father John Romanides, even though I completely disagree with his attack on Augustinianism, he says pretty much everything that you believe in via the church can be explained, maybe not materially as in like a brick, but it is something that occurs within the world. We're not talking about Jimmy Neutron metaphysics here. So already this dude doesn't know what he's talking about.
Or, I guess, epistemology, how do you know that this is the case, that it's less likely, and that, you know, an atheist worldview, a naturalistic worldview would look like the way it is today?
Of course we don't know, but that's why I use the phraseology of unlikely. I think that
doesn't mean anything, dude. I could be a pagan 3,000 years ago and say, hey, guys, it's unlikely that the Israelite religion will ever spread. Oh, I'm wrong. Guess I'm fucked. I'm going to speed it up a little bit.
if you were to tell somebody who was sort of in some Rawlsian state of nature, hadn't seen the world, and you said that the world has been created by an omnibenevolent, all-powerful God, what kind of world would that person be imagining?
Citation needed. Where's the omnibenevolent? Omnibenevolent means he's only capable of doing love. That's not true. Read the scripture. It clearly does not. That's not the case. Whether in the Jewish system, the Christian system, or the Islamic system, that is certainly not the case. So again, another red strike, O'Connor. Not looking good so far.
And if you dropped them into the world, if you were given the opportunity to become a wild animal, like in 2 seconds, I was just going to turn you into a random wild animal somewhere on planet Earth. I
like being a guy.
I think you'd probably kill yourself before I had the opportunity because you know that the life of these animals is almost defined in terms of their suffering.
I guess I
Not
just
really. Cats are technically wild animals. If I turned into my cat, I'd be pampered and probably live to be 20 years old. But if I actually take his request seriously, why can't I choose to be a lion and just kill stuff? And then when I'm like 10, I die of starvation and that's it. I mean, that's not great. That's not as good as living in luxury. But this, I think he's being a bit dramatic. I'm the guy who studies the animal stuff more than anybody. So for him, he's just using this as a hinge point in a debate. I'm the one who actually cares about this stuff, and he's being a little too on the nose with this.
don't really see how you can justify that claim per se. What I would say is that if we actually take into account the holistic view of the scriptures, which I do think that you have to do, we see that it's actually much more coherent once you acknowledge that evil itself doesn't have ontology. Evil's not a thing. You don't look under a rock and say, there's the evil, right?
Fine by me.
And so
I'm not really talking about evil here because that's, of course, a moral term. I'm talking about suffering.
can you distinguish suffering and evil?
So evil is a moral term. Evil means that something is bad, it's immoral. You need to have a moral ontology for that. Suffering is just any experience that's not wanted when experienced, right?
However, Alex, you just admitted, though, that if you can't prove something's evil, why should the guy next to you care about suffering? I care, but I have a reason for why I care. But you just said evil is a moral thing. It has nothing to do with the question of suffering. Suffering still exists. Why is it happening? Why do you care? Is the question if you can't support that.
Right? And so even if you don't have a moral objectivism, you can still say that suffering exists. So here's a question.
You don't need moral objectivism. I've said many times that even though in the perspective of human beings, God's decrees are objective because they come from his, I'm going to say brain, but they come from his mind. They come from God. It's actually subjective. So enough with this objectivity. You're not debating Thomas Aquinas here.
A deer gets its leg caught under the branch of a tree that's fallen over in the wild, and it starves to death in confused agony. Why does God oversee this? And why does God set the natural world up such that events like this occur?
Well, because
that's actually a considerably faster way to go than, again, what humans do to each other. I'd like to see him use these consistently with the human paradigm of war, because what humans do to each other, torment, torture, etc., go on for many, many days and weeks. And also someone can have just a very bad life, whereas with an animal, they don't have the ability to dwell. So an animal obviously knows when it's in pain. Nobody mistake that. Didn't say that they don't. I hate when people say that because it's not true. They obviously can feel stuff, but they can't dwell. And so a three-legged dog doesn't wake up every morning pondering why his leg's gone. He just lives his life to the fullest. So he doesn't understand how animals interpret what they're interpreting. The confusion and the pain stuff is obviously bad. But again, we already talked about the fall. I'm going to skip a lot of the people, don't worry.
the ultimate view here is that
Okay, pause.
Nice to meet you. Good work.
Alex, man.
How's it going? Nice to meet you too.
Okay, so my first question to start out with is what exactly about suffering makes this unlikely on the condition that God exists?
I think that if God is all loving, then he probably...
Okay, there you go, bingo bango. What if I don't believe in the omnibenevolent stuff? Debate's over. I'm going to read a couple of the comments really quick. The modern UK is so depressing, C.S. Lewis and Chesterton would be disappointed. Peter Spinney says, that's not a random example. I can't remember the book, but he's taking that deer example from a book. I'm sure it is. I'm sure someone saw that happen once and they couldn't get over it. even though most animals wouldn't care. I actually, Captain, I think you're correct there. I think O'Connor is more of a pre-supper than the people he's debating. Let's continue.
Probably wouldn't want his creatures to suffer, and so I think that the fact that they do suffer makes his existence less likely.
Okay, perfect. And is there some specific aspect of suffering that you're particularly honing in on,
Yeah.
horrendous or
In
whatever that is?
particular, non-human animal suffering, because I think that the
Again, humans do it worse.
Christianity has a celebrated tradition of theodicies trying to explain why suffering exists. Human free will, the development of the soul, higher order goods, all of this kind of stuff, none of which apply to the suffering of non-human animals.
Have you heard of the axiological expectation mismatch problem?
I have not.
Okay, so philosophers of religion have started to understand that the thing that actually generates a problem between God and suffering is actually the value system you attach to the very attribute of perfect lovingness. Because the problem of evil is an internal critique, you have to look at a very specific version of theism and how it defines perfect lovingness. I want to present to you a version where my version of perfect lovingness does not actually constitute a problem and a misalignment, that mismatch between the suffering of animals, let's just say the profusion of suffering of animals, and the existence of God.
So let's hear it. What kind of God are we?
Great response. He's basically saying that the only problem here is if you believe in this God that's incapable of doing wrath or justice, and also a God of perfection, which, the Bible doesn't say God is a God of moral perfection. He's not perfect according to your own morals, but you must align with his. So technically, Mr. Greenshirt is correct here.
Imagining that would allow and oversee and do nothing to prevent billions of years of untold animal suffering.
Right, so you're talking about
Most of us won't believe in this billions stuff, so irrelevant point.
non-prevention.
Or setting up the system that is natural selection such that it relies
And didn't, the fall.
upon things like predation
Yeah,
and disease.
well, the first part is I don't agree with the whole setting up the system part. So I'm not one of those theists that believes that God does this select and pick idea of creating worlds. I don't think that God actually creates worlds. I think that God lets worlds develop according in a certain way, but because God can oversee
Okay, that guy was smart until he began to speak here. Let's see
an overarching narrative, he knows exactly how he can redeem anything. So the first time, sorry, go ahead.
Could God have made it such that animals were all herbivores instead of carnivores and omnivores?
Yes, he could totally do that.
Okay, so had he done that,
Herbivores do eat other animals sometimes, though. So there's videos of there's like a horse that eats a baby chicken. So he's not saying anything. There's a lot of herbivores who do stuff when they're starving.
here's an instant way to reduce by orders of magnitude the amount of suffering that exists.
Right, but hold on. That's particularly assuming a value theory already that I haven't told you I'm adopting that has a problem with the evil. So I have to give you my value theory first for you to show that misalignment.
Okay, let's hear it.
Perfect. Okay, so my value theory says that it's not the most important thing about a sentient creature is not what merely happens to them. It's about the total timeline of their life and where their life permanently ends. Meaning, if you were to judge an author of a narrative, and the first few chapters, let's say, there's a lot of bad things happening, but the end ends with this crescendo where there's victoriousness, there's redemption, there's beauty, and everyone in the story actually.
St. Francis actually says that in the end, all of creation will be kind of absolved back into perfection. So technically, the end result would be exceedingly good. But yeah, I mean, if you read Romans 5, 8, 9, the kind of God that St. Paul is describing is good, but he's not the good. He's not Plato's good. And Alex is critiquing Plato's good. And so I guess that's a good reason why we don't believe in the monad or Plato's good. Like we don't believe in that.
Endorses their entire existence that they live. They can look at their they can look at their total timeline, and they actually each subjectively come to the conclusion, I'm glad I was made, and I totally see what my suffering was for. That's the particular I'm using with. So we have to judge. Hold on.
Animals can't contemplate that though, dude. He's going a little too far. Alex is also going too far. Both of you are wrong. Animals can't contemplate that. They don't contemplate why is this, why is that. Bad stuff happens to them for sure, but they don't contemplate it. It's bad for them in the moment. It's not bad for them before or after. There's no contemplation involved. And trust me, I care deeply about this subject, and I detest people who are needlessly cruel to animals, obviously. But these are not good arguments. I'm gonna go to the next guy. I think this guy sounded smart at first, but now we're getting into nothing.
And since suffering, needs the existence of the world, that it's theism, but granted the existence of a material world, let's say, I think atheism.
Okay, why does suffering exist at all?
Someone needs to press him on the materialistic thing. You could be a theist who believes in materialism. What is with the precept here, buddy?
Like in an atheistic worldview, what is the cause of suffering?
Oh, well, because however life began, it developed through a series of natural selection, which requires animals to develop senses that they wish to avoid in order to be more likely to survive. And that's why pain receptors evolve. In a world where not all of these pains are actually going to kill us, we're left with situations in which we're in a lot of pain but don't end up dying.
Well, technically, it's more immoral. It's going to sound weird, but it's more immoral if those kind of things have no purpose whatsoever. So even if you have a deity who literally, maybe not as the first cause, but as a secondary cause, causes all the misery in the world to occur, that would be more moral than for it not to have a purpose, because purposeless suffering is even worse, because there's no redeeming factor in it whatsoever. I don't believe in that theory, but I'm just saying that would be a great argument against this guy.
Would you agree that consciousness is necessary for suffering?
I would say probably, yeah.
Does atheism account for consciousness?
Yes, that's what I was talking about a moment ago. Perhaps not. Maybe theism accounts better for consciousness than atheism does.
So if there is no consciousness, there is no suffering. Is that right?
That's probably true, yeah.
So if atheism cannot account for consciousness, then it cannot account for suffering. Would you agree with that?
So I think what we're doing here is we're sort of slightly shifting the goalposts. If you don't want to grant the existence of the material world,
that's not shifting the goalpost, man. Can you tell us if things are conscious? Because if they are, then you can tell us they're suffering. Now, if Alex then says, well, wait a minute, when I burn my hand on the stove, that hurts, therefore I know suffering is real. But now we render the problem of solipsism, wherein I don't know if anything in the world even exists. What if this is all figment of my imagination? So there's no proof that it's not in your system, and there's no proof to prove consciousness outside of your own brain. So if I can only base it on my own brain, then we got to refute the problem of solipsism, buddy boy.
Before we start talking about this, we can do an argument from consciousness, but then we need to debate whether consciousness is explicable on atheism. What I'm going to say is this.
Sure.
What I'm going to say is this. Consciousness may seem to imply the existence of a conscious creator of the universe. We're here talking about, I suppose we're talking about Christianity, and the claim was about God. But the God that you believe in, let's say, if we grant that there is a creator deity who sort of brings about the universe of conscious creatures, have you ever heard of the evil God hypothesis that Stephen Law popularized or came up with?
Tell me it.
So the idea is that, like, imagine that there's a God who brings about the world and creates the world, but does it maliciously because he wants human beings to suffer. He brings about a world.
Dude, that's not a new theory. That's the demiurge. That's Gnosticism. There's nothing new about any of this stuff.
In order so that human beings will suffer, right? That seems like a plausible hypothesis. And even if you think that consciousness points towards God, the kind of God that a lot of Christians think is a sort of necessary quality of God, which is to be all-loving, might not have to apply here.
No. It means he's the standard for love. It does not ever say in the scripture all-loving omnibenevolence. So I'm sorry. I will bet you on that. It's not there. And also, you just read anything in the Old Testament. Like, it almost always ends with, and then God came down and his wrath was bridled against the so-and-so tribe, ending with the word ites, and he destroyed the ites and cracked open the earth. They all fell in there and they got crushed, and now their name will be blotted out for all eternity, and the place till this day is called the place of the destruction of the Midianites or whatever. I mean, where is he getting this notion from?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
If Christianity were true, is it plausible that suffering is necessary for God's purpose?
If Christianity is true, then I think it must be necessary because there'd be no other explanation.
Okay, so we're not talking about whether or not Christianity is true.
If you're asking me if it's plausible that Christianity is true and therefore suffering is necessary, I would say probably not, because I don't think suffering should be necessary or could be necessary.
In an atheistic worldview, I would agree with you. It makes no sense at all. But okay, I would ask this question.
So can I ask you why then, if God exists and wants to come to know everybody and wants to love everybody and does so for the sake of human beings, why
Again, taking that out of context, what the theology says is he would like for all people to be good. That would be great, ideally. All people are not good. So God shows favor on some people and wrath on others. It's Romans 9. That's based on Jeremiah's writings as well. I mean, and Exodus as well. I think it's Exodus 23, or maybe it's Exodus 24, where God says, I'll have mercy on who I have mercy on, and I'll show wrath on who I have wrath. So that's not this idea that, oh, God has to love every single person the exact same way. No, you will be chastised if you're not a good person. I could then whip back at Alex and say, in your system, evil people get away with whatever they want, and there's no purpose to anything they do. So
he chose to imbue the world with so much suffering that is at least seemingly completely inexplicable.
Are you a father?
No.
I'm a father. I want my son to become just like I am, better than I am, I should say. I want him to become the best that he can be. Is it possible for him to...
Yeah, you could just read the book of Ecclesiastes is really good on this. It basically laments the problem of evil and suffering. So does Job. I think I think I'm right about this whole Marcionite thing, guys, because every time you see these guys dealing with a Christian or whatever, it's always presupposing the Marcionite or Gnostic view. It's like, oh, what if God were evil? Or let's just ignore the entire Old Testament. We'll just read a couple Gospels, and Paul says something about, oh, death, where is thy sting? And then bada bing, bada boom, we're done. So that's one of the other problems here.
To reach his potential without suffering in his life?
Perhaps not, but there's
so suffering is necessary.
There are a few things I want to say. Okay. Firstly, that kind of moral development doesn't apply to non-human animals, as I've already said. Right? That does not account for the brutal death of animals in the wild. Also, if I don't want to talk about your
actually it does, because per your own system, you just said that in natural selection, things do have to suffer and die in order to make the race. or the species or the world stronger. So actually, it does have a purpose. In his system, even it would have to have that purpose, and it would have the purpose in our system too. But per the fall, that's not what the ideal state is. And per the redemption, the eschaton, we know things get better in the first place. Not seeing a problem yet.
Because it's tragic to think about, but somebody else's son has suffered and died immediately as a result of that suffering. They don't get to develop in the same way.
I would agree that on a micro level, it's very hard to justify. And we can ask the question, why doesn't God intervene on all
So
of
look,
these
you might be able to
sufferings?
justify an amount of suffering, right? But the fact that there's so much gratuitous suffering in the world is what I think makes God's existence unlikely. There are some instances where maybe a certain amount of suffering brings about a certain amount of good in a situation. That, by the way, would count as a justification. But when a child dies of leukemia, and they're dead,
Could there be a purpose to it? What if the death of the child brings their parents to God?
then
to
perhaps
salvation?
then the parents should be grateful that their child got leukemia because it's doing the will of the Lord.
not
That
necessarily.
seems
All right,
obscene
pause.
to me.
No. You're
Please
awesome.
return to your
Thanks,
seat.
You're so cool.
Actually, wasn't a horrible response with the guy with the white shirt. I think that definitely stepped on a nerve for Alex there.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm awesome. I would love to pull back a little bit.
Sure.
And
I would.
ask you, what are your values kind of rooted in and grounded in? Where would we start with that?
So I'm
We're gonna skip. I can't deal with any more of this pre-sub stuff. All right, let's go here.
Or you're expecting like all good things to happen over
that if I assume that there is a good God supervising, invigilating the universe, that I would not expect to see so much suffering.
Right.
So
And
much gratuitous, seemingly unnecessary suffering.
Right. And you know, the most beautiful thing is that
He never focused on the good parts of animals' lives. So it's as if I said, let's only look at the Gaza war, but we can't look at anywhere else in the Middle East where people might be enjoying their lives. And thus, for much of an animal's life, they actually really do enjoy it. You know, they are designed to enjoy it. An impala is designed to graze and jump around, and that brings them joy. And for about 5 minutes of their life, they're going to be running from a cheetah, and the cheetah might get them, and then it's all over. I mean, what's this stuff about this long-term, drawn-out torment? That's really a thing that humans do to animals, and humans do to each other. Animals don't have that capability. There are a couple species who have like a really pretty gnarly venom and stuff, but for the most part, it's usually just, hey, shark came by, ripped this fish in half, he's gone. There's no time for contemplation. I would like to wager that I think O'Connor himself has not been through that much suffering, especially as a Westerner. We all have way too much time on our hands. So these are the people who worry about these things, whereas the people actually suffering, not having great lives, places in North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, West Africa, etc., they don't have time to think about this stuff, so it's not relevant for them. They just seem to enjoy the world for what it is and animals for what they are. And you always see like a pig who's been kept in like a pen for much of his life. When it comes out into the grass, it's like happy. So it goes to show you the natural state of a pig in the wild is happiness. So they enjoy life for the most part.
our God is not.
Oh, he already lost. It's over. Marcy and I told you guys. If you've actually, thank you very much, Luke. So if any of you guys have actually seen like real stuff that Alex is not going to mention, he's so obsessed with phytoplankton getting devoured by whale sharks. If you actually look at some of the grotesque things that occur, I'm going to show one of these things for you right now. We're going to take a little break from. Hold up. I posted this, but I tweet too much now, so I might not be able to find it. Aha. No, I don't want to say that. Yeah. Okay, take a look at this. Take a look. Make it full screen. Everybody see the image I just put up there? Let's read it out for the class. Punic / Carthaginian votive mask mocking child sacrifice victims, circa 814 to 146 BC. We all saw the mask? I'm gonna wait for you guys to respond before I continue this video. Anyway, no one's answering, but you guys are like 15 seconds beyond. As you can see, there's great evil in that time period. And I would even wager up until relatively recently, this kind of stuff, there were people who worship demons, demonic gods and stuff, and they would do the same things. And so when you have a commandment to wipe everything from existence. Just so you're aware, that is why. You guys read the text under it, right? Like, you read what it said. So the ones who were being burned alive, those little ones, that mask was made to mock them. So that's the kind of evil that was supposed to be eradicated, including the youths, because they themselves were either going to undergo suffering or were even a part of it. If you read the rest of Scripture, it's pretty clear that everybody's born with that kind of sin, and they have the potential to act on that. And throughout history, you can see British journalists, they chronicle the fact that even young people get involved in this, and even at the age of like 8, they can end up doing pretty bad, gnarly stuff. And so when you have a society that evil, I don't think that the response is actually that extreme. So again, you're going to have Mr. Progressive Disgust fail. See what this guy wants.
First, and yes.
I need to get down the adrenaline just a little bit after that run. Yeah, I think what you bring is interesting. Like, I think, if we were to look at the literal definition of the Bible, I think we can see that God commanded a person to commit genocide. So I think we're aligned there.
You mean the definition of genocide?
Yes.
Yeah.
So with that being said, though, I think when we look at Christian theology in the full...
oh, wait, I forgot to do my usual spiel. So Alex is, of course, applying a universal morality to this, but he cannot account for where that comes from. You, of course, need some kind of Platonic system, or even an Aristotelian system or Pythagorean, to account for where the universal morality can exist, the justification for it. So he's basically saying, here in the text, it prescribes that there's a genocide. Boom, I defeated you. It's like, wait a minute, Mr. O'Connor. Why do you care so much about such a topic? Maybe you could enlighten us as to why it's bad for this to ever happen whatsoever. Not saying it's a good thing, but you haven't told us why it's bad. Second of all, you woefully leave out the part where these people are inexplicably beyond evil. So there is a justification for that.
Adam and Eve decide to disobey God. Technically, we're all, subjected to death, subjected to the wages of sin, the penalty of sin. I'm not a perfect person. I deserve the worst, right? And that's because, and the only reason why I'm happily breathing is because, Jesus saved me, right? And so when we look at this pretense, like, because we fell, I know this is a very unpopular thing. God can do whatever he wants, right? Whether it's, genocide, putting us to death, we've talked about suffering and all these things.
So can I ask you?
Actually, he could do that before the fall, to be honest with you.
Your question then.
Yes.
Suppose that you woke up tomorrow and you've been sort of transported into Canaan. You wake up and you're a Canaanite.
Yeah.
And you think you haven't done anything particularly wrong, but you're a bad person, you're a sinner, right? And then...
No, Alex. You're ignoring the text. There is no Canaanite that didn't do anything particularly wrong. Read history, my man. Actually, you're not my man. You're an enemy. But if you actually read the history, there is no, old Jim here who lived in Canaan was a nice guy, business guy, always paid his taxes on time. Unfortunate about those little rapscallions who did the child sacrifice. No. Everybody was involved in this. This was a celebrated moment of festivity in this society. And by the way, Buster Brown, that's my tribe, all right? I have some ancestry from those accursed people. And I feel absolutely no shame with the fact that they're gone. I mean, it's that simple. Everybody pulls this guilt trip because you imagine the Canaanites as this hypothetical, oppressed, like brown people, shepherds who they didn't do anything wrong, and then the mean old Israelites came in and whooped them, and it's over. It's like, no, man, I know exactly where this stuff comes from. And there are civilizations who have done worse, and they've also been put to the sword. Look at the Mayans, Aztecs, etc. Even the Inca. Everybody loves Inca because of Cusco and Emperor's New Groove and stuff, but there's some gnarly stuff in there too. All this stuff, they did horrible things. They got whooped for it. Sometimes they get erased, sometimes they don't. In case of the Canaanites, there is no, Jim here in sales, he was a good guy in Canaanite society. No. Everybody thought that this was perfectly okay. And you want another example that has nothing to do with the Mayans, the Aztecs. How about I give you a European example? So you don't think it's just a bunch of these third worlders doing it. I'm joking, obviously. My lineage comes from the third world, obviously. But, if you want a European example, St. Augustine writes about the fact that people would go nuts during the feast of John the Baptist, St. John the Baptist, and they would throw like live cats into the fires and stuff, not where he was in North Africa, but he would report that this stuff was happening in parts of Gaul. And that persisted throughout time because there were poorly catechized people that mixed pagan folklore with a very generic nominal practice of Catholicism. And so these people saw nothing wrong with throwing live animals into fire and watching them roast and finding it entertaining. So number one, that shows us there is no universal morality, or else they wouldn't have been acting that way. Boom, your natural law is over. Number two, you need to justify the universal morality for it to be wrong, but you can't. So now we don't know. And number three, great evil existed in the world, and there is no the good Canaanite.
The Israelites come knocking at the door, and you know that they've been sent by God. And they come to your door, and you say to yourself, well, I know that this is the will of God, even though it's really horrible. God can do whatever he likes. So you say, please don't kill me, Mr. Israelite. Instead, let me first betray my family to you, because I know it's the will of the Lord. Would you allow that to happen?
I will contest it with this, right? We all fall short of the glory of God. It says that in Romans.
Dude, you got a nice, right, you got good intentions here, but you're a buffoon if you could not answer that question. There were no good ones. They all thought this was perfectly morally acceptable. It's over. It's over. None of them thought, oh man, gee, this is the will of the Lord, I better suck it up and do it. No. They were all against him. That's why it happened. Now read this stuff. Nobody read? Ridiculous.
That's right. So like, whatever I'm subjected to, I'm not entitled to a good life. Like, I think even me living.
Yeah, that's true. But let's go to the next person.
Which says that Israel was wiped out and their seed was utterly removed. It was gone. And so we've got like comparable phrases used in other ancient Near Eastern communities in their historical texts that talk very similarly, but like we know that the Jews persisted to exist in Israel, even though the Egyptians said that they were no more. And that text explicitly says man, woman, and child. That's hyperbolic language that even we used today. Like for example, in World War II, there's those huge posters that were put up. Every man, woman, and child is needed. You know, like that's, I can read that and go,
yeah, sure. But so imagine, for example, I mean, there's a discussion at the moment about whether Israel is committing a genocide in Palestine today.
Sure.
Now, suppose a lot of people said, but you're killing children. And Israel said, yeah, but that's just a product of war. Imagine if we discovered that behind the scenes, Prime Minister of Israel had said, leave alive nothing that breathes. Kill everyone. Kill man, kill woman, kill child and infant. Kill the animals. Kill the donkeys. Don't leave anything alive that breathes. Even if he was trying to sort of make a hyperbolic point. The fact that children are then dying as a result, I think that we could lay some blame at his feet. Here we have God saying that. Those are the words that are recorded. Also on the point of hyperbole.
Yeah, I never go the pitiful route of trying to make this hyperbolic. It could be, but I'll take even the most extreme interpretation and still be able to show you that this argument falls completely flat on its face, because the great amount of evil that those people were doing actually does justify their comeuppance. And also, if you read the rest of the text, it says that they persist like forever. Like they don't actually get completely annihilated. They live in Canaan itself in the northern parts, and then up in Phoenicia and coast of Syria. So it was particularly tribes living in a certain part that were supposed to be wiped. And again, like this guy is completely ignoring what they were doing as a society. So I'm going to skip because I think this guy does not know what he's talking about either.
Bible, God is love. Our fellow peer, he stated that our God is a very just God. So can we argue that or say that even though this God perhaps like in the beginning of the Old Testament, that's where the genocide occurs a lot. We can also say that.
So do you think genocide does occur?
If it did say that in the Bible, I just want to say that like these people also went to heaven. It's not like they're getting like killed and punished in that moment. He's also taking these souls of the women and children and taking them with him, if that's the case. But the whole argument is about God. Like,
okay, I have a question then. Do you think it's okay to kill people because they'll eventually just go to heaven anyway after you kill them?
It's not about killing. It's just like
people who get abortions doing their unborn children a favor by killing them in the womb, therefore giving them a fast track to heaven.
This is a different approach to genocide. But I just want to say like
I don't think you get to inflict a genocide and then sort of just make up for it with the fact that you send them to heaven afterwards.
Yeah, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that they went there. So she's applying the universal stuff. Now, I'm going to read some of the other comments. But Jeem, what about Canaanite skeptical? He didn't want the Canaanites to do sacrifices. Yeah. Two Crook says, the Palestinians are also descendants of the ancient Israelites. The conflict is effectively a brother war. I have my takes, but that's as far as I'll say. Yeah, that is as far as I'll say. And also, despite the fact that the numbers are kind of high, you can't compare that with the stuff that happened in the Torah whatsoever. It's not comparable. It's not full scale. It's bad. It's really bad, and it's indiscriminate, but it's not full scale. The red flag means they disagree, and now they want to talk. And Harry is correct here. Yeah, this is pretty bad. These Christians are pretty bad, but he's also very bad. He's just taking advantage of
the way it's used today.
Idiocy.
It implies that it's based on the race. Mm-hmm. And that is categorically against the command of God to conquer the Canaanites. It had nothing to do with their race. It had to do with their sin. And in fact,
so you know that when Amalek is attacked,
right?
Israel first warns another tribe that they're coming.
Yes.
And says, get out of here because you were good to us when we came out of Egypt.
Right.
Amalek battled them when they came out of Egypt.
Yes.
He says to this other tribe, you guys get out of here. They warn them, right?
Right.
They don't say, hey, you get to stay here. They say, you've got to go,
Yeah.
but we're going to warn you first that we don't totally destroy you.
That's right.
In other words,
Absolutely.
it does seem to be, I mean, why is it that Israel are going into this land? The nation, why are they going into this land? Because it was the land promised to them by God. Why does it need to be cleansed? Because there are people in that land
Deuteronomy
who
chapter
aren't
7.
supposed to be there.
Deuteronomy chapter 7, chapter 9 says, do not think that it is because of your righteousness or because of anything that has to do with you that I brought you into this land, but it was because of the sins of the nations that I gave it to you. This is Deuteronomy chapter 9.
Yeah, so people were so bad that he's now allowing a different people to go in there to hopefully do good. They end up messing up too, Alex, and they get destroyed as well. So anytime someone misbehaves, quote unquote, they get punished for that. So thank you very much. Finally, someone actually mentions this topic and doesn't get bogged
So
down.
it's not because he promised them based on some sort of ethnic requisite. He, in fact, the whole premise behind the destruction was the prototype of Sodom and Gomorrah.
So then a question which I
Or
think
daguerreotype, because Noah was
a question which I think I know the answer to. Then, do you think there was not one sort of good person?
No, exactly, and that's the point.
And if that's the case,
So
but then
that's why I brought up Sodom.
let me ask you a second question.
Well, hold on, let me answer your question a little bit more fully.
Were there any good people in Israel, in the nation of Israel?
Right. So let me answer your question.
Because
one
if
by
the
one.
answer is that there were bad people in Israel
Okay,
too,
so this goes back
why
to
is it that they don't get killed as well?
The slaughter of the children.
It's not.
They do, Alex. They do. Read the rest of the text. It says very clearly that whenever the Israelites, mess up, they get punished too. God allows Nebuchadnezzar to come in, Sennacherib, tons of other people come in, destroy the whole city, slaughter everybody, force them to eat unclean meat. They build a statue of Zeus, if you read the Maccabees account, if that's in whatever canon you guys read, sacrifice pig's blood on it, humiliate them completely, burn down the walls of the city, take him away into captivity in Babylon. I mean, this guy just does not know even the basics. Of course they get chastised for it, but here's the difference. The prototype of Sodom and Gomorrah, that guy's 100% correct. Because if there's no good people there, and then that event happens, then there is no good people in Canaan, that event happens to them. He's saying, well, what about there being some bad people in Israel? Yeah, but if the majority are good, that exception does not work there. Because the exception is only for if there's total and complete evil, not a few people that are evil.
What about
the
nation?
slaughter of the children has the same problem because it has to do with innocence. Okay, so let me address that problem.
No, nobody's innocent, but my specific question is.
But you're saying the children in the land of Canaan are innocent and they're being slaughtered.
No, I'm not. That's not what I'm saying right now.
You said that
What I'm
earlier.
saying is that I retracted the word innocent because I know it can be a bit tricky.
Okay.
But
No, it's tricky because you have to believe in Platonism for that to exist, buddy.
what I'm saying specifically here is that if the reason why Canaan is destroyed is because they're immoral, there's all kinds of immorality happening within the Israelite nation. Hold on.
Yes, all kinds, but they were not at the level of 100% of the population's doing, or at least allowing evil. Whereas the Israelites, like, okay, 10% of them are bad, they get punished, and we fix up society. Then 50 years later, some other people are bad, we fix it up. But every time it gets past a breaking point, every time the majority get bad, like in the time of Elijah, etc., people do get chastised and punished. Alex, I don't know what book you're reading.
It's happening within the Israelite nation as well. If it's not about nation, if it's not about tribe, then why is it that Israel aren't told to kill the immoral people in their tribe, but only people in the other tribe?
No.
They are. Like, read the Torah, obviously.
They are. And in fact, that's what they do. And in fact, that entire generation that was promised the promised land died out without seeing the promised land because of their sin.
But not at the hand of the Israelites.
Okay, fine. But
the Israelites are not told to expunge their own nation.
Yes, they are, Alex. The golden calf, Moses kills like 4,000 of his own people. I'm sorry, but it's right there. This is absurd.
By killing their children and killing their animals.
Sure.
Kill the animals.
Yeah, they do that too.
Yeah, perfect. I'll give you a thought experiment. Let's suppose that tomorrow we find out that the pedophilia rings, that conspiracy theory is somehow true. Like, just imagine, like, V for Vendetta style. Like, imagine, like, hackers just broadcast everything that was going on, all the blackmail tapes.
This is trash. This guy was good and he fell off. Start here.
The prior probability of the resurrection of Jesus and the data itself.
So what I'm really interested in is the historical case for the
I
resurrection.
stopped wearing my big glasses because every jerk now wears them. It looks stupid. I don't wear glasses anymore.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, I want to ask a clarifying question because I would love to talk about the data. But if I were to give you a model of the Gospels that I would call like the historical reportage model, which would say something along the lines of the authors of the
Gospels. Josephus, Eusebius, etc. What do we got? He's back? All right.
The graves opened at the time of the crucifixion, but they weren't walking around and appearing to people until after the resurrection. It seems confused, it seems contrived, unless they were like hanging out dead in open graves for like 3 days until...
Yeah, dude, this one's pretty easy. There's 4 Gospels for a reason. If they were all the exact same, it wouldn't really make sense. People need to stop having this view of the Gospel narratives, like New Testament especially, as a whole, like it's the Quran or something. It's not dictated by God's hand. It's the eyewitness accounts of people. And so kind of like the hadith system in Islam, there are many different ways to tell a story, and those are all true to an extent, but they happen at different times. So Matthew might include something that Luke, John, and Mark thought is like, yeah, that was interesting and all, but has nothing to do with the narrative I'm talking about. The symbolism that I'm writing about, the way I'm presenting what I've noticed. That might not be relevant for me. All right, I think we've done it. I'm gonna let open the calls, but guys, I literally have only 15 minutes because my computer is dying. I didn't bring a charger. There it is. I'm not pinning it. Oh my eyes. Oh, hello. We have tons of people here. Let me super chat 5. I'm not well into the Old Testament with an Orthodox reading. Are the notes from the OSB sufficient to understand this topic? Yeah, for the most part. I mean, they understand all that stuff. And thank you guys very much for having this awesome crowd into here. I've just put up the chat link, so please join on like Chrome or Mozilla if you'd like to talk, because I think it's time to talk. Hey man, how's it going? I can't hear you, buddy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. How's it going?
Okay, great. So I want to ask about Platonism. Do you really think it's accurate to call them monotheists in the normal sense? Because I think a lot of Platonists and Neoplatonists, even contemporary ones, I think, even if they adopt that philosophy, I think they still practice polytheism. So how does that work?
So you're saying that you think that people who claim to be Neoplatonists do practice polytheism. Why is that?
Well, I think Iamblichus, and I think even Plato himself, in his will, makes practices about, when I die, use my wealth to honor this or that god. So I don't think they're monotheists in the same way we think monotheists are.
Yeah, I agree with that. They're not strict monotheists, but they think that like there's one great god, the good or whatever, and all the other gods. Thanks for the super chat. All the other gods are kind of they might exist, but they're lower. So the good is like the real one, and they all kind of come from that. It's based on this idea of like logos spermaticos, which is the idea that all these other gods and prophets are lining up into the truth and the one God. But as you can see, most of the moral talking points that people are using per atheism come from these kind of Platonic ideas. Do you have what else did you want to talk about other than the Platonist stuff?
Oh yeah. So a bit more on topic then. I guess what you've been saying is that we can't really use modern presupposition, or basically saying, if God is supposed to be nice, well, why isn't God nice the way I want him to be nice, right? That's not really a good argument to make. But then I guess you can't really make the argument. I think then, do you think the moral argument for God isn't really a good argument? And by that I mean, I'm not saying morality is just subjective without God. That's not what I'm saying. But I think you can't rely on your moral intuition to say that God must exist, because humans' moral intuition apparently throughout history is so different. If that's the case, then what do you think is the more better prima facie, on its face, God must exist argument, other than the moral argument?
Yeah, well, first, I definitely want to say, and sorry for the late replies, guys. When I had the other tab open, I couldn't see what was happening here. Thank you very much for all the gift subs and the massive crowd that came in here. So thanks to the Crucible, and I think if you guys still use the Crucible Limited, etc., follow Andrew and Rachel Wilson on X and YouTube. So you're just basically saying that the moral argument that, sorry, can you repeat the last 15 seconds of what you were saying?
Okay, yeah. So if we can't rely on our own inborn human intuition about what is moral, so how would, if the moral argument for God isn't the most reliable because our intuition isn't always nice, as history has shown, then what would be the better, simpler, on its face, God must exist argument?
I don't really care about the must existing arguments. Like, you can go that route. I just personally like to rather point at the fact that these events in history, the Old Testament events, etc., and stuff that leads into the New Testament really did happen. You can find that I'm a big fan of biblical archaeology and other kinds of geology that are related to that. I prefer to take that route and just prove that this stuff literally did happen. And then if it did happen and that God does exist, then we should follow his decrees. Also, I gave you this answer last time, maybe not last time, but one of the other times you were here, that I definitely believe in like Augustine's version of his view of humanity, because like we said, people don't know how to naturally behave. And I don't have faith in humanity to just say, hey, nobody needs to believe in anything, let's just back off. Or anybody can believe whatever they want, let's just back off. Because insane levels of evil have come from that. So that would definitely be one of my answers. I'm gonna let the other guy on here, but you can stay. I just want to give people a chance because I have literally like 9 minutes left. Somethingologist, Suno Moseliologist. What's up? I can't hear you. Mr. Moseyologist, you might have to come back on Chrome or Mozilla because I can't hear you. And Restream, which is the website I'm using, it only really lets you do Mozilla or Chrome. Sorry about that. Two Crooks, what's up?
Hey man, so one thing that just always pisses me off is when I mention this a lot in the chat, but it's when Westerners just like to keep bringing up, oh, look at the terrible things God did to insert Middle Eastern and North African country here. Okay, well, now go look at the people who live in these areas, because contrary to what Ned Flanders Christians think, there is a continuity between Middle Eastern people. It wasn't just white people with funny names who were in that area. Now they're all just brown Bedouins. But like, ask the Tunisians whose ancestors were, you know, the Carthagins and whatnot, what they thought about their human sacrificing ancestors. They'll be like, oh, you know, screw them. I'm glad we worship Allah now and not rocks or bloodthirsty human sacrifice worshiping gods.
Respond real quick. ALC, I like the joke, but you know, a lot of people don't get it. I'm not running, obviously. You guys can call in, but if you don't use Chrome or Mozilla, I can't hear you if you don't use Chrome or Mozilla. Thank you very much. I'm a strawberry. Sent an email with name Laggy Stand for the book. So yeah, just so you guys know, like, you have to use Mozilla or Chrome to come in. There, I don't know what that was, but you have to use Mozilla or Chrome, or I won't be able to hear you. But yeah, Two Crooks is right. As someone of 100% Middle Eastern origin myself, you know, this idea that it's like, oh, these weirdo extinct races with funny names, we better feel sorry for them. It's like, no, we can trace our ancestry back to these people, and goodness forbid they suck. And it's like, we don't want them. Like, I'm not proud of that period of history, and I'm glad to denounce those people, whether they call themselves Phoenicians or Punics or Carthaginians or whatever they want to call themselves. That's some wicked stuff. Like, I know this stuff happened. There's records of it literally happening. They found the archaeological records in Tunisia showing that people really did practice this stuff, and they would even have letters bragging about, hey, I threw like 10 infants in the oven because I had to sacrifice to Melkart. I mean, this stuff's real, guys. It's not oh, he did come back.
Yeah.
Hello, what's up? How's it going?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. How's it going?
Oh, great. Just wanted to connect and thank you for your podcast. That's it.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Do you have any questions for today?
You know me as on my thing, it shows up as Harry Ludwig.
Oh, great to finally talk to you then, Harry. Awesome.
Yeah.
Glad you called in.
And you know what sunomasiologist is?
No, why don't you tell me? I don't know what it is.
It's the biblical study of conspiracies.
That's pretty cool, actually. I didn't know that was a term. That's a pretty cool term.
No, I made it up. Totally. Anyways, take care.
Thank you. You too, man. Thank you so much for calling in and being a fan.
Yeah. Take care.
All right, you too. So, Crooks, you were saying, what were you saying?
Just the same point, you know, talk to somebody who thinks the Prince of Egypt movie is, this biblical propaganda and it's so anti-African, so anti-Egyptian, but talk to an Egyptian Muslim or Christian right now and they'll be like, yeah, the pharaohs kind of sucked for doing that. God was right to punish us, and, you know, we all worship God now. Moses is a prophet. We redeemed ourselves at the end. So
did you know that the Salafis, for those of you guys in the chat, the Salafis are a really kind of extreme version of Islam. They want to go back to the good old days. And Egyptian Salafis will say, we need to destroy the pyramids because they're attracting too much idolatry. And people think that Egyptians worship like Ra and stuff. I mean, I don't think anybody really believes that. But, you know, a lot of people think of Egypt as kind of a, like, oh, it's just a touristy country. But they don't like that. And they don't like all the attention on these pagan things. So for you guys to be like Alex saying, "Oh, what if you were a Canaan?" I was like, "Hey, buddy, if I go back far enough, I was." So maybe you should talk to me about this stuff. But
You
Crooks,
know
I
what?
think you're correct
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, you know what I think? I'm gonna go a little big brained here and say that a lot of people in the West cannot draw, a sort of ability to realize or that they juxtapose they love our ancient cultures, but they hate the people we are right now.
It should be the other way
yeah.
around. They should like us more now. Back then, it was horrible. What do you like? Not all horrible, but like there was some
Exactly.
bad stuff, like Tunisia, parts of
Iraq,
Lebanon, parts of Palestine. Like they did some gnarly stuff. You have all these people, like you said, stereotyping, kind of doing this golden age, like, oh, if only the Egyptians returned to the age of wisdom. It's like, dude, they were doing some pretty gnarly stuff.
They don't want to return to that. It's like there is a 0% overlap or almost 0% overlap between being a neo-pagan for ancient Egypt and being Egyptian, or being a neo-Canaanite or Ishtar worshipping person and being, an actual Iraqi or Lebanese or something like that. It's almost always just, I'm going to be blunt. It's almost just Western white people, sometimes Western black people that do this. And, you want to talk about cultural appropriation. Well, stop worshiping the gods we rejected a long time ago.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you guys also have to understand. And then, unfortunately, even though, again, I want to say thanks for the awesome Crucible raid, I will have to go in a couple minutes because my computer's dying. But I do want to say, for someone who is such a fan, whatever. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but you can join the stream. I've got 5 minutes left. If you look at Egyptians today, just so you're aware, before an Adam Green comes in here, like a brown Adam Green, the Egyptians weren't brainwashed into becoming Arabs. Like, the Egyptian identity is a very interesting thing. I know now we're not really talking about subject topic anymore, but Egyptians will say, like, they're Arabs, they're part of the Arab world, but they're also native Egyptians, and they're proud of, like, look at all the achievements we made, but I'm not worshiping that Ra shit. Like, I like Allah. That's it. I'm not doing Ra anymore. So it's kind of both. Like, they're proud of who they were, but they really don't want to go back to that. And I think a lot of Europeans, as Charles de Gaulle, you want to go back to ancient de Gaulle? I don't think so. He likes being a Frenchman of his time period. So, all the things that we take for granted, like not burning children alive, comes from the fact of the Old Testament trying to wipe these things out.
Yeah, and actually goes back to your video on Arabs, Gene, which was actually the first video I watched from you when I was doing a search. The reason why Arabic spread so quickly in the Middle East, North Africa, is because there was already a large degree of cultural overlap. Contrary to what people think, even though Islam did spread Arabic culture to an extent, it didn't overwrite everyone's DNA. It didn't, suddenly utterly erase their cultures. This is pretty familiar to them. The same way how, you guys might not know this, but a lot of the Nabateans, al-Nabati, to inhabit what is now Jordan and Saudi Arabia, they were also speaking Aramaic for a while. Then they went back to Arabic after, Islam, but that was all familiar to them. Now,
well, another thing that's interesting is they also, at the same time, yes, they were similar and familiar, but they're also still different to this day. Like, if you ask an Egyptian, if you tell an Egyptian you're not an Arab, they'll get upset. They'll go, no, I am an Arab. But then if you say, oh, you're an Arab like the Saudis, they get a little annoyed. They're like,
oh no,
our culture is different. We're not like as a Bedouin, and it's very different. So it's like they're Arabs, but Arab is kind of like a pan ethnicity at this point. It means many different things to many different people.
Exactly, and Egyptians and Saudis have the best fights on the internet, so
That's pretty funny. I gotta let in Young Gamer, and then I will have to take the stream out. Any of you Crucible guys who we had some great comments in here, thank you for coming in and obviously boosting the video, and thanks for all the super chats and stuff. But it would be nice if some of you had actually called in more, but whatever. Cool Nazarene says, this is not a debate-ertainment channel, but I mean there can be debates. Yeah, there could be, but like nobody ever wants to debate me. That's the thing. I keep the chats open. Every video I do, nobody comes in here debating. They don't want to do a voice. Yeah, Crook says they won't call in because voice to voice reminds you to be a human. Yeah, you can be tough on text. The people, you can debate me, but like nobody wants to debate me. It's kind of weird. Young Gamer, what's up?
What's up, man? I just called in. I woke up a second ago, and now I see Jim is streaming. Massive stream. Honestly, I would say with Egyptian identity thing, it's really weird because I think we're seeing sort of a revival of trying to reject the identity of being Arab. I have some Egyptian Muslim friends who call themselves Coptic even, which is really weird to me.
Well, Copt means It just means Egyptian.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like comes from kebt. I think kebt just means Egyptian. Let me just answer the question. One Blue Eye, hey, what happened to the other one? Says, what's your position, Jeem? I'm new here. My position is I think most Christians are too liberal, and a lot of them are Marcionites, and Alex O'Connor sucks, and I debunked him in the video, and that's my position. If you'd like to find out, to any of you who are new here, sorry about the background noise, if you'd like to find out more about my positions, watch the last like 10 streams I did. There's one called Tribal Morality and Christian Warfare. Watch those, you'll get the Gene pill pretty quickly. Anyway, Young Gamer, what were you saying?
Yeah, that's all I had to say. That like people are now rejecting the Arab identity, I think, a bit more completely.
I think it's more of an internet thing, to be honest with you. I think like if you go physically to Egypt, they're gonna say, "Hey, I'm talking Arabic. I'm obviously an Arab," but they just don't. They don't mean like cartoon Bedouin guy on a camel. There are tribal Arabs in Egypt, so there's a difference. Like if you go to the tribal parts, there are guys who just came from Arabia like 1,000 years ago, and they just live like Saudis. But most Egyptians who live in the cities are just native Egyptians.
There was have you seen this video? It was a really long one by this Bedouin guy. Oh, sorry. Am I really?
No, I'm messing with you. It's loud as hell here. I think there's a party on this floor.
Oh, okay. So there's this Bedouin guy. Oh, okay. This guy said, waiting for Young Gamer to say Georgia.
Don't. Let's not do
yeah. But basically, have you seen this interview with this Bedouin guy who became Christian? It's an interview with this Serbian guy.
Yeah, that's on my channel, actually. I know both of those guys. I think, like, unless it's recent, but a few years ago, there was a Serbian guy. I know the Serbian guy, and I know the Bedouin guy. I have the video uploaded on my channel here.
Wait, really? Did I watch it off your channel? I might just referencing one of your videos.
I know the guy. I knew him on Discord. He's actually lives in Arabia. He's a good friend of mine from ages ago. Yeah, I know him.
Yeah, so I was just wondering how much of like the Bedouin population would you say practices actual Islam and practices their actual religion? Because it's very weird.
Well, historically, there were centuries of time where they were just really like folksy. It's like they did Islam, but they didn't know all the practices. They just kind of read the Quran and like they killed people who were Muslims, and that was kind of it. But you know, when Ibn Saud took over Saudi Arabia, he re-evangelized them because when the Ottoman Empire kind of cut them off from a lot of the world, they just kind of lived like bandits for a while. Not in the Gulf. So remember, the Gulf Coast always had trade with India and other places. But the ones inside the desert, they didn't care about what else was happening. So Ibn Saud, he kind of recatechized them. All right, well, I think I need to head off because my computer's dying. So guys, Two Crooks,
goodbye.
Thank you for calling in. Enough with the running stuff. It's cute and all, but I do need to get going. And it has been an hour and 15 minutes. Come on, it's late at night. If you guys are new, thank you for coming in from the Crucible. Rachel and Andrew Wilson, thanks for the support. Super awesome, of course. I would have loved for more people to call in. Everyone's always saying, "Oh, Gene, why don't you debate people?" But I keep the streams open and nobody wants to debate. Either they don't have a response to what I'm saying, or the magic sorcery of this channel has converted them to my opinion. So thank you guys very much. Check out my previous streams. Check out Tribal Morality in the Old Testament and Christian Warfare, two of my larger streams in the last month. You will get an idea of what this channel is about. Like, comments, subscribe, share the video, ask me whatever you want, contact information in the channel, and buy my book, The Misunderstood Bible, 2nd edition, and my future fiction book, horror fantasy novel, which will be out in about a month. All right, guys, see you later, and I'm going to get the ending scene in here right about now.
Freakiness is a part of life. Original Baramonga along with the two bad, wicked youths of rap. Not a mercy, whoa.
What's the business? Talk paper when I'm riding by. They know it's drizzle, he the truth off the east side. I know who ain't got my money because they ducking high. I grind for me and mine. I got the green light. I got to get it how I live it. That means front line. I got them zips, I got that soft, I got that hard white. I got that